Hi guys, happy Sunday. Say hi as you come on. Welcome to Sunday school. What are we talking about today? We are going to talk about the Holi Life, which is the new brand that I just launched. And we are going to talk about what it means, what's behind it, what you can expect from it. We're going to talk about what's happening in the world right now and the role of spirituality and God at this time. And we're going to talk about homeschool because I started homeschooling this year and I still get a lot of questions around the why and the how and the what. So I'm going to dive into that a little bit. For anybody who's chosen to homeschool or is deciding that they want to do that, I'm going to give you a little guidance, okay? Before I get started, I want to show you my Halloween nails. Okay. You guys saw my post earlier this week. I'm not like a Halloween lover at all. Like, I hate it. I'm a bah humbug when it comes to Halloween. But my kids love it, you guys. Okay. My kids are like, love Halloween. And so I try to get into it for them. So this is my way of getting into it. And I actually love these nails. So for those of you who are always looking for a non-toxic alternative to going to the salon and getting your nails done with gel or a non-toxic alternative to nail polish, these are the Impress press-on nails. So usually I grow my nails a little bit and I do my own nails with non-toxic polish and I do my nails often. But these are the Impress press-on nails that you can buy at the drugstore. You can order them from the Impress website. And they come in different sizes. So they come in like medium and long. And during this time of year, they come out with the seasonal stuff. So they have Halloween, they have like Christmas time, like they have holiday nails. And so it's pretty cool to put those on, and you don't have to go to the trouble of going to the salon and having somebody do these for you. They're pretty inexpensive as well. So for a set of like 30, I think it's like $6 or $7. And they're just an adhesive. So you peel the sticker backing off the nail, and then you just make sure that your own nails are filed down and short, and then you just match up the sizes. And I've got a pretty small nail bed, I guess you could say. So for me, like doing my pinky nail is always, you know, if you want to buy some of those pre-made press-on nails or whatever, you can never find the right sizes. But the Impress ones have 30 nails, which is quite a selection because you only need 10, right? So you've got 30 different sizes, 30 nails of different sizes. So you're always going to find 2 that match up that you can do for your nails. And anyway, I just think it's a fun, cool way to do it. And it's a non-toxic way to do it. And it takes no time and you don't have to wait for them to dry. So it's pretty awesome. If you're into that sort of thing, you guys should look at the Impress nails. Okay. Yeah. Non-toxic. Easy breezy, takes like literally under 5 minutes to do, and then you can just go do your thing. You don't have to worry that your nails are going to be wet or whatever. And if you take good care of them and you're not overly hard on them and you apply them properly, they actually last a week and up. So usually what I end up doing near the end is I will soak them in some acetone or put a little bit of nail polish remover in there just to peel them off myself. But they start popping off at about 7 to 10 days. So anyway, there's a little tip for you guys. That's my Halloween tip for you. Okay, Halloween nails. Okay, so for anybody just hopping on, just a quick recap. Tonight we're going to talk about my new brand, The Holi Life, what it is, what it means, what it's all about. We're going to talk about what's happening in the world right now and the role of God and spirituality at this time. And then I'm going to end off by talking about homeschool because I get a lot of messages in my DMs from people who still don't understand why I'm homeschooling, since I always say that I'm not afraid of a virus. And they want to know what I'm doing for homeschool and how it's going for us. So I'm going to share some tips with you guys, okay? So if you have questions, pop them into the comments. I'm happy you're here if you're here live. If you don't catch the whole thing, I'll be posting this to IGTV, so you'll be able to catch the replay. So first, let's talk about the Holi Life. So you guys, New brand. Okay. For those of you who don't know where I started or what I've kind of been through or the journey I've gone through, I'm going to give you a quick 60-second recap. I started a blog exactly almost to the day 8 years ago. My kids were born in February, and that following October of 2012, I decided to start a blog because I was at home with my kids. I was reading a ton of parenting books. I was super into fashion, lifestyle, motherhood, and I just wanted to share my journey being a mom of twins. So I started a blog called Modern Twin Mom. And that was kind of my foray into the online world. And I've had that for 8 years and built upon that and shifted and morphed and changed. And throughout, everything that I've gone through, eventually quitting my job in the pharmaceutical industry and ended up, taking a business completely online, a coaching business. I started a podcast and a coaching business called Modern Mommy Prep School. So I changed from Modern Twin Mom to Modern Mommy Prep School because I was giving women the tools to prepare for motherhood, expecting and pregnant, and new moms. Okay, so I was doing a lot of coaching. I launched some programs and I launched a podcast. So that was, I launched that podcast in December of 2016, so almost 4 years ago. So we went from Modern Twin Mom to Modern Mommy Prep School. And then as I started to grow as a mother, as a human being, and kind of took on more education and experience with some of the things I was doing, I shifted a little bit and started doing more life coaching as opposed to just coaching new moms, and started doing more work with, one-on-one, online programs supporting women in their health and their mindset. And I, changed the focus a little bit. So it was more inspirational mindset. But I always find myself going back to the same core principles when it comes to living an overall holistic and healthy life, which is mind, body, and soul. So that's kind of, where I've been. And last year, I've had the High Vibe Life podcast for a couple years now, and then I had my brand Sanit Sechdad, and I just started thinking about how I can encompass everything I'm really passionate about, which is, empowering women to think for themselves, empowering women to be empowered, to be healthy, to be whole, to be taking charge of their own lives and their health and their motherhood and all of that, including my passion for holistic health and nutrition and all the other things that I have education and background in. So I've been toying with this idea of an all-encompassing brand where I can continue offering programs, coaching services, a blog, a podcast, resources for moms who want to raise holistic children, and some of the other things that we're going to be putting out. And I had this idea in my mind of putting that all together, and it's taken a while for it to come to fruition because COVID, right? I was going to start transitioning everything over in about January, and then I started working on some stuff in the back end of my business, and I was going to launch it in March, and then COVID happened, and it's just been kind of crazy ever since then. I've gotten really caught up in what's happening right now, and I'd put the business on the back burner. So I'm finally relaunching everything. I'm super excited, and I just wanted to share with you guys what the Holi Life means and what it stands for, and so that you know what you can expect, okay, from this brand moving forward. So everything is slowly changing over. This episode that I'm doing today, the Sunday school episode, it's a live recording for the High Vibe Life podcast, which is going to switch to the Holi Life as well. Okay, so everything's going to be the Holi Life. We've got a Holi Life Instagram page, a Holi Life Facebook page, the holilife.com website. And it is going to be holistic living. And that includes all things mind, body, and soul, because I believe that you cannot have a healthy and holistic you unless you've got all the pieces together, right? And you guys know what I'm all about. You know that I like to empower women to think for themselves. You know I like to empower women to take charge of their own health, their happiness, living that toxin-free, healthy, holistic life. So it's going to be all of those things. But the Holi Life is really a play on words, okay? So first of all, Holi, H-O-L-I, is short for holistic. The second thing it represents is living a holy life. And to me, holy, H-O-L-Y, is about holding something sacred. It doesn't have to necessarily mean that it's religious. It's just that you are living a sacred, sacred life, okay? A sacred, aligned life where you are completely aligned with who you are, who you're meant to be, what your place in this world is. And the third piece of that is Holi, Holi, which for those of you who are Indian or understand the Hindu celebration of Holi, which, you know, my background is Indian, so this is something that I'm kind of tied to, is this celebration that they do in India of Holi, where they're celebrating the new, a birth of something new, moving from winter to spring, something fresh, a leaving of the darkness, moving into the light, a triumph of good over evil. So this feeling of being fresh and new. Okay, so the Holi Life was a play on all of those things. So it's actually short for holistic, but then it's a play on that. And that's why I started Sunday school, okay? And this kind of leads me into my next point about what's happening right now in the world and the importance of spirituality and religion at this time. I started Sunday school back in March, as you guys know, or sorry, I think it was probably April, right? End of March, beginning of April, where I was really starting to question what's happening. I was really starting to ask questioning. And I was craving connection and community, which I always have. I've always craved connection with like-minded people, especially like-minded women. And I feel that over time, we've kind of lost the ability to connect because we're so disconnected in different worldviews, and then we're all online. And all of these things have come between us and being able to connect with others. And I've been thinking a lot in the last couple of years about church and religion and spirituality, and this idea that way back in the day, a lot of us used to go to church, right? I grew up going to church, going to temple, going to Gurdwara, which is the Indian temple for Sikhs. I went there almost every Sunday with my parents. That's where you saw your friends, your family. You were in community with those people, right? You were connected. And a lot of people now identify as, yeah, they believe in God, or maybe, yes, they're spiritual. And especially in the last 6 months with everything that's been going on, we're being prevented from gathering. And so where do you go to build that community? Where do you go to be in tribe and in community and, in groups together where we are with like-minded people, and we can talk about what's happening in the world, and we can support each other and bounce things off of each other and just talk it out and think it out, or listen to somebody speak, right? Like a preacher or somebody who's giving a sermon, and kind of feel like you're on the same page. Where do we do that anymore? So this idea has been brewing in my head for a long time, connected to the Holi Life as being a spin-off of that, of having Sunday school, an online space where I can maybe lead something where we all come in and we share our thoughts, and we, not that I want to say I'm a preacher or anything like that, but I'm going to use my platform to come on here and share some of what's going on with me, in the hopes that somebody out there will feel like, hey, I'm feeling that too. And this isn't the best platform to do that, but it's the best we have for now, right? And as time goes on, I'm hoping that the World Wide Web of technology will start to advance so that we can do this even better. Okay, so that's kind of, Sunday school is a spinoff of the Holi Life. That's how it's all kind of culminated together. I just hadn't officially launched the Holi Life yet, so Sunday school may have felt like it was a little, where'd that come from? This is how it all pulls together, okay? So right now, for those of you who have not figured this out, we are in a spiritual war. Okay, who feels that right now? This is not about a virus. This isn't even about politics. Like I always say, this isn't about a virus, this is about politics, but actually this is not even about politics. I fully believe that right now we are in this massive spiritual war. Like this is a time that people are being called to rise up, show up, work past some of the hard things. There are people who are speaking up about things that matter to them, who've never really spoken up before, right? This is this time is making some of us very uncomfortable, right? Last week, if you guys listened to my podcast episode, I did a Thanksgiving episode where I talked about all that I'm grateful for this year in 2020. One of the things is like this year has squeezed me so hard that my insides are coming out. So what you see, that's really me. Sometimes I'm good, sometimes I'm not good, sometimes I'm sarcastic, sometimes I'm love, sometimes I'm talking about whatever, vaccines, right? I go off on a tangent. Sometimes I'm about Trump, sometimes I'm talking about Trudeau. Like I'm all over the place, but that's because I'm not filtering myself right now. I'm being real, I'm being me. Since March, you guys have seen me kind of doing this slow, like loop to loop unraveling of everything I'm thinking, learning, feeling. And I feel like that's what this time is all about for a lot of us, right? A lot of us are feeling like there is this spiritual tap on our hearts to grow, to rise, to shed light. There's still a lot of people who are, I hate to use this word over and over, but sleeping, okay? But that really is what's going on. I mean, have you ever tried to wake somebody from a deep sleep or been woken from a deep sleep yourself? Right? It's like 2:00 in the morning and somebody's trying to wake you up. Or even this morning, like I had a late night last night. I went out with my sisters-in-law. I had a couple glasses of wine. I ended up coming home and like it was windy and I couldn't sleep. And then my kids crawled into my bed and I ended up having a really, like I didn't get to bed till like 2 a.m. And my kids were trying to wake me up at like 7 a.m. I was exhausted. And it's so annoying when someone's trying to wake you up and you're in a deep sleep. That's what's happening right now. There are some people who are sleeping so deeply that they're annoyed and they're uncomfortable that you're trying to wake them up. They don't want to see what's going on. They're not ready for it yet. And that's okay too, right? I mean, I get frustrated with it sometimes, but I continually remind myself that we're in a spiritual war. And if you at all believe in a greater power, God, the universe, source, whatever, if you haven't already thought about this, I encourage you to think that perhaps before you came on this planet, you actually were meant to be here at this time. You asked to be put here at this time. This is happening for you. You are serving a purpose. That's why you're here right now. Okay. I have often said to my husband and to other people who show up in my DMs and friends of mine, I have never in my life ever wished this, but in this last 8 months, there's been times when I've thought, I wish I didn't have kids. Because this time has just broken me open completely to being so scared for what the future might look like for my children. And then I snap out of it and I go, no, Sunit, just as you were meant to be here at this time, so are they. They chose to be here. We've all chosen to be here at this time before we got here. I believe that more and more, and I know it's really hard, but we are in a spiritual war and we are needed. We are needed at this time to be here, to shed the light, to speak up. I see people popping on and I recognize some names of people who I know who are also speaking up on their own platforms. Okay? So if you're one of those people, throw me a heart right now. Like, you guys, we are in this together, okay? Like, I know that some of you are speaking on your platforms. Some of you are speaking up with your families. Some of you are having one-on-one conversations with friends. Some of you are doing it in other ways. Some of you are going into stores and maybe you don't wear a mask, and maybe you, like today, somebody said she went into Whole Foods and was asked to wear a mask, and she got into a conversation with the cashier about health and the importance of being responsible for your own health, and there was a conversation had there. However you're deciding to speak up, if there's anything about this time that's not agreeing with you, you're doing your part, and you probably chose to be here right now. Okay, so I want you guys to really believe that and really feel that. And I think I posed a poll the other day. I had put out a question saying how many of you guys believe in God, or don't believe in God. And I probably should have worded it differently, because there was a few people who said, I don't believe in God, but then they private messaged me and said, well, it's not that I don't believe in anything. I don't believe in God, but I do believe in a higher power. That's cool too, right? Like whatever you believe is totally fine. But I think if you are somebody who believes in any kind of a higher power, like God, source, universe, whatever, then you also have to believe that there is a larger purpose for us right now to be here. This isn't just some random thing that you happen to be alive at this time and you're a part of it. No, I think if you're awake right now and you are shedding any kind of light, you are speaking up in any kind of way, you're aware at all, then you chose to be here at this time. There is a purpose. There's a reason that you're here. And for me, whenever I get to that place of like, oh God, I'm exhausted, or I'm frustrated, or I can't believe I'm still at this 8 months later. Like who feels like that? Like you're like, oh my God, I'm still doing this. It's been 8 months. Whenever I feel that, I just go back to that. I go back to just reminding myself that I chose to be here at this time. And whenever I'm feeling scared for my kids and for their future, right? As I say to my husband all the time, if it wasn't for them, we would have picked up and left a long time ago. I think we'd be like off in Costa Rica or Mexico somewhere. Like, you know, we stay because we're planted here and we don't want to uproot our family. And there's so many things to think about when you have kids. And I have at many times felt so sad and so scared for them. Because who hears me, mamas, you guys know this, right? Like when you are responsible for another little human being, there's just something that's so much more pressure. If it's just you, it's like you can just up and go. And then if you've got a partner and you're on the same page, you can do that too. But when you have another human being that you're responsible for, or two humans or three, or, you know, it's like it can feel so hard. That's why I've had such a hard time this last 8 months. That's why you see me kind of unraveling sometimes, because I have kids. I have somebody else besides myself to think about. But when I get into that place, right, I've had many meltdowns, many cries over the last several months. I had a good one like about a week, 2 weeks ago when we saw that, you guys all saw that email flying around about some liberal leaked email about the plan that's happening. Anyone who's been paying attention since March and diving into this, the contents of that email were no surprise, right? We all know, if you're paying any attention, if you've done any research into Agenda 21 and 2030 and, you know, the World Economic Forum and you know anything about that stuff, you've already been reading about it. That leaked email really came as, it's not a surprise. We've seen all that. But to read it there in black and white, whether it's fake or not fake, it was almost like a affirmation of like, oh my God, there's somebody else that's saying this. And I had a good cry that day. You know, I had a good cry. And again, I was terrified, not for me, but just for my kids. And then I had to just remind myself, nope, stop. They chose to be here at this time. My kids are little spiritual little beings too. Just like we are, right? Anybody who's on here and is even slightly awake, we are too. We chose to be here at this time. We chose to be here at this time. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. And that's how I move this stuff into my homeschool, you guys. I talk about this stuff I include this in my homeschooling now, where I talk to my children like, you know, what do you believe? Like, do you believe that we're more than just a body? And we talk about the soul and what is that soul? What does it look like? And what do you think that is? And could it be that a soul is just something that's taking a ride in this body? And when the body's gone, the soul's still around, and maybe the soul gets to choose what kind of experiences it has in all of eternity. Like, we have these great conversations, and if you've never had a conversation with an 8-year-old about this kind of stuff, it's pretty fun. It's pretty enlightening. It's been really cool having these conversations with my kids. So all that to say is that when I remind myself that we are just spiritual beings having a human experience and that we probably chose to be here at this time, I instantly feel better. Like, no, I have a purpose. I have a reason for being here right now. This, what I'm doing right now, how I'm shedding light, how I'm sharing, the fact that I'm sharing, I'm supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be doing that. And then I think the same thing about my kids. When I start to worry about their future and what that looks like, I just bring myself back to that. Nope, don't go there. They chose to be here at this time. They are little spiritual beings having a human experience, and they were put on this planet for a reason. Okay. And I've always believed that, obviously, about my kids. Like, if you guys don't know my fertility journey, like, I went through a lot to have my kids. Okay. So the fact that I ended up with them, like, before them, there was many that didn't make it, right? So the fact that I ended up with them at that time, and they're here at this time going through this with me, to me is all the more validating in that, nope, they chose to be here. That's who I was supposed to end up with, side by side on this journey. And when I'm having those deep, dark days, that is what gets me through. So I hope that helps you guys too, in terms of just thinking about that. And thinking about, if you are a mom and you do worry about your children's future, I want you to just remind yourself that they're here for a reason right now too. They're here to serve a purpose, you know? And maybe their purpose is to drive you, right? Maybe if I didn't have my kids, I would have picked up and left. I would have gone to wherever, Timbuktu, living off grid, Costa Rica, wherever, Mexico, somewhere, right? But maybe that wasn't meant for me. Maybe me leaving and not being able to make a difference here is the worst thing that could happen. That's what's keeping me here. So this is the role of believing in a higher power at this time, a God, a universe, a whatever. It's really, when you have that faith in something else greater than you, and you remind yourself you serve a purpose, then it's easier to get through these hard times. Okay? And that's why I commit to doing things like this, like the Holi Life brand, and then the Sunday school, which is a community gathering for like-minded people who just want to feel like they're in community with other like-minded people. We need that now more than ever. Okay? Mel said the validation just made it so real. Yeah, that when that came out, I know that was not a good day. And then, like, bless everybody on here who sends me, a lot of times I'll get stuff in my inbox where people are like, have you seen this yet? And of course I had already seen it, and people wanted me to comment on it or share it, and I just didn't want to. I was just not in that place that day. I felt like everybody was seeing it, and I didn't need to comment on it. I need people to start to really think for themselves about what they think that means, whether it's real, whether it's not real, right? Okay, so speaking of kids, let's get into the next part, or the final part, I guess, of what I want to talk about tonight, which was homeschool. I've had many people still, like, you guys, I've been talking about homeschool since, like, June. Since June, we've been talking about potentially homeschooling. We didn't know what we were going to do, and I was sharing my journey with people. I did go live at one point to talk about why we had chosen it, but I'm going to just do a quick recap for anybody who doesn't know why we chose to homeschool. Here in BC, our kids did go back to school June 1st. So they opened schools up here in BC, and we chose to send our kids back because at that time there wasn't any there was no masks, there was none of that. They did want people sanitizing their hands before they went into the classroom. I sent them with my doTERRA hand sanitizer, and they were fine with that. And that was it. And half the parents didn't send their kids back, so it was totally fine. And it was great. But then as school started winding down into July, I started really paying attention to the ramp up, the increased masking. Suddenly there's provinces requiring masks in public places. They started talking about the vaccine. They started talking about testing. And I just started to think about, what does life look like if you're a kid in school and it's flu season. Like, what happens when everyone goes back to school and it's cold and flu season and people start getting sick? And we already know that they're pushing for potentially another shutdown. And now you're in a situation where you can't control what kids are talking about, what they're saying, what are they hearing at home? Are they in a situation where they're living in fear, right? My kids are coming from a home where we're not living in fear. But I recognize there's still a lot of people who are. And if the parents are in fear, their kids are in fear, and then they're taking that to school. What kind of conversations are being had? Okay, now I can control a lot when my kids are around me. I can have great conversations about souls and spirituality and what really is COVID and why don't we wear masks and turn that into a homeschool lesson. But when my kids are at school for 6 hours, 7 hours a day, no matter how hard I work to impress something upon them, we all know peer pressure and the effects of just being in that environment, what that's going to be like. I also had concerns about their physical health. So is there going to be masks mandated at some point in the schools? What are the schools being sanitized with? I was hearing horror stories of nighttime fogging happening with toxic chemicals, all of that, right? There was just so many things, and it just felt to me like I just remembered what that was like in March when school was shut down and we were all put into a tailspin and having to suddenly switch to online teaching. And, that was a really hard time for me, like really hard. I've learned this about myself, I guess. I do well with routine. I can fly by the seat of my pants for some things, but something as big as school, especially like when I run a business from home on my computer and I need time to myself to work in that business on my computer, and then I've got kids who need to be on the computer to do their online learning, like that was not a good time for me. And I realized that it was the short notice part of it that wasn't good for me. And when I had some time to think about it, I thought, okay, I have one of two choices here. I can send them to school, hope and pray that everything's fine, and then pivot if I need to. Again, if school shuts down or anything, I need to pull them out, then, we do it that way. Or we can just call it and decide we've been toying with homeschool for a long time. We can just decide to call it this year, do a full year of homeschool where we know exactly what's happening, what to expect, and we're not in the system, so I don't have to worry. And to me, it's, and I talked on the podcast episode this week about going with your gut. I think that's so important. You guys, if you have not honed that skill of feeling into what lightens your load, what brings you joy, what removes anxiety for you, I highly recommend doing that. It's here. It's here. It's here. It's here. You know, nobody else, you know better than anybody what to do. You know better than anybody what your gut is telling you to do. Too often, we've spent our whole lives being taught to not follow our gut. Okay? We're told to not listen to our gut, to compare ourselves to other people, to listen to what they said, all of that. We're conditioned over a lifetime to ignore what our gut is telling us. But actually, it is such a gift when you can start to really connect into who you are and to your intuition and get aligned with what your highest self is telling you. And when you make a decision, right? And I talked about this on the you guys, if you haven't listened to the podcast this week, it's one of my favorite episodes that I've done where I talk about all the things I'm thankful for in 2020. And I really articulate when this all started. One of the first things that forced me to listen to my gut was making the decision to still go to Mexico when everybody was being told to cancel their spring breaks. And we chose to go anyway. Despite everybody telling us not to go, people are freaking out. Our parents didn't want us to put the kids in danger. I mean, gosh, I've never experienced so much pushback of people telling us how to live our lives in my life. And we went anyway, and we did what we thought was best anyway. And it was the best decision for us. And that kicked off the next 8 months of me really starting to listen over and over again to myself, to my heart, to my intuition, and know what the right decision was to make. So by the time it came around to making a decision about school, my gut told me, you should keep them home. It is the best thing for them. And it's the best thing for you. I knew that by not sending them to school, first of all, they didn't not want to go to school. They wanted to go back because they want to see their friends, right? Kids like to go to school. They like to see their friends. They want to see their teacher. So in a way, it was almost a selfish decision. And I talk about this too, being selfish in motherhood. We are so conditioned and taught that we have to be selfless, that we have to constantly put our children first and always put ourselves on the back burner. No. Okay? I'm here to flip the script on you for a second. What matters most is your physical and emotional health so that you can be that guiding force and that rock for your children. If your children are happy, but you're sacrificing yourself to the point where you're emotionally and physically not happy or available or healthy, you're not doing your kids any favors, guys. Okay? That is a detriment to your family. The best gift you can give your family is to take care of yourself first. So for me, I knew selfishly, if I send my kids to school, they might be happy because they get to go back to school and they get to see their friends, and that'll be one less battle I have to fight. But I will constantly be thinking, what are they learning at school? What are their friends saying? Every little thing I would be asking them, oh, what'd you guys talk about today? Oh, what is that person think? Oh, who is wearing a mask? And then maybe mask rules would change. And then that would give me anxiety. Maybe I would hear something. That would give me anxiety. Like on and on and on. And I just knew that I would not be in a good place if we did that. And I knew that keeping them home with me was the best decision, because even though it meant they don't get to see their friends at school every day, it meant I felt good, happy, and healthy. And it's turned out to be the best decision that we made by far, because I see everything going on now, and I do have people in my life. I have friends. I see people on social media who did choose to send their kids to school, who are now having to deal with crazy rules, right? Like kids are testing positive, parents are freaking out, they're introducing new rules about masks, their kids coming home traumatized about something. I mean, if it's not one thing, it's another that I'm constantly seeing. And I just continually thank my lucky stars that I was guided to keep my kids home, because I don't think I would have done well with what's going on right now. And guess what? We underestimate our kids too, right? Like I felt bad they would miss their friends and knew they would, but I kind of hoped that I'd be able to make that better by forming new friendships with like-minded homeschooling moms. And we've done that. And I will still make attempts to do play dates and, have them connected with their friends at school, but they're very happy, and so am I, right? Don't get me wrong, and I'm going to talk about this next, what our days look like. It's not easy. Trying to run a business, rebrand, run a household, now homeschool your kids, do all the things. I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted at the end of every day. It's tiring. I definitely feel more... that feeling you have as a mom where you're like, I failed as a mom today, or I didn't do enough? In the past, I rarely had that feeling because I was always giving myself grace, because I felt like there's only so much I could fail at. They were at school all day. But now they're with me all day, and there's lots of things I can fail at. I've had my patience tested. Sometimes I wonder if they're learning enough. Sometimes I wonder if I failed them in a certain subject. Sometimes I think maybe we should have done more for homeschool. Like, I have those moments too. I have those days. So it's definitely harder on my psyche from that perspective, but I think I'm emotionally strong enough and to have done enough work on myself to also go back to giving myself grace. And one of the things that I was talking about with my husband before we took this journey on was, I was like, they're only in grade 3. Worst case scenario, even if I mess up royally and they learn nothing this year, they're just in grade 3, they're 8, like they'll catch up, right? We'll send them back next year and it'll be fine. So it's like a constant reminder that it's okay. It's okay. I'm doing my best. I'm doing good. But really what's ended up happening is through me being selfish and keeping them home for my own mental health. Yes, I've stressed myself out a little bit more with other things, but in turn, I have the healthiest, emotionally healthiest, happiest kids. They're thriving. They're doing so great. They said they love homeschool. They joke they love their teacher. My husband has even commented that he even notices that they just seem even more, we all seem more connected as a family. So it's been a good decision on our part. Okay, so now let me dive into what that looks like for us, okay? I like structure. I like routine. Okay, so I'm not a fly by the seat of your pants, total radical unschooling mom. Like there's a lot of unschoolers out there who do nothing, like they don't have a strict schedule. The kids lead completely, which is, I super respect that, but that wasn't for us. I know that especially with my business and everything else, I knew we needed some structure, okay? So first of all, for us, we've structured it so that we have some solid kind of blocks of time in which we all know what we're doing. So it's gotten to the point where it's such a routine that there's some things I don't need to be there for. They can walk themselves through that part, and that's my time to work. So for instance, we start every morning at 9 a.m. So 8 o'clock, we kind of get up, we snuggle, we do the breakfast thing. 9 o'clock, they're downstairs and we have like a quiet time. We start our day, we put some essential oils in the diffuser, we play beautiful, quiet, spa-like music, and they read, they journal, and they meditate, okay? This is something that's really important to me to instill in my kids. And so we've been meditating for a long time, but I decided to make it a part of school. So they do that. They know their routine. They have a little meditation coloring book that they color in, and that is about a 45-minute to an hour kind of a thing. So they read, they write, they meditate, and then they do their meditation coloring book. And so it's usually about a 45 minutes to an hour. Sometimes I sit down there with them and I just work on my laptop. Sometimes I'm in my office, or sometimes they're sitting in my office with me and doing this, but that's just a routine thing that they know that how to do. Then between 10 and 11, we have another block where we're doing some type of hands-on activity, whether that is writing in a write book. Like right now they're practicing cursive writing, so we've got cursive writing books where they're doing their cursive writing. We've got some math books and some other kinds of books. I think it's called Canadian curriculum. So I usually will, what I've done is I've taken what the grade 3 BC curriculum expects of them by the end of the year. I've taken the big ideas out of that, and then I've used that to kind of bullet point, like, okay, they need to have these skills by the end of the year. And so I've bought a few books and curriculums that will support that. And we have been a zero screen time other than TV family for a long time. We didn't do iPads or tablets or video games or anything. But this year, at the start of the school year, I decided that I would allow them to have a little, we've always had little tablets for our car so that we can download movies when we go on road trips. So what I did was I took those tablets and I threw a few apps on there, like a Word app, a math app, a French and Spanish app. And so I'm allowing them to use those as part of their learning. So from 10 to 11, that's our time that we're working on like the subjects, like the different kind of hands-on concrete skills that they need to be learning in math, French, Spanish, writing, okay? And then from 11 to 12 is kind of a more abstract time of taking the things that they told me at the beginning of the year that they want to learn about. Okay, so they've expressed interest in learning more about aliens, outer space, certain kinds of animals, different kinds of religions and cultures and countries. And I took everything and I brainstormed it on our whiteboard, and then I divided it up to kind of see, okay, what subject does this fit into? How does this fit in with the curriculum that the BC curriculum that's required of them? And I just kind of, every day it's kind of something different. But in that time, it's more of like a free play. Like we might play a Scrabble board game where we're only allowed to make words that have to do with Aboriginal culture. Or maybe we'll go for a walk and we'll look for certain kinds of leaves and flowers. Or maybe I'll go online and find them a YouTube video where they're learning about essential oils and how they're sourced from a certain country. Because I sell essential oils, so that's important to me that they learn about that too. And they've expressed an interest in learning about that. So I try to combine things, and we try to just pull from everywhere. Maybe we'll cook something together and it'll be like the theme of a country or a culture. So that is the more abstract kind of stuff that I pull together. And that's pretty much that 3 hours. So 9 to 10, 10 to 11, 11 to 12. And in there we take little breaks too, right? Like we'll go have a snack, or they might go out for like a 15-minute bike ride if they seem to be getting restless. So it's very flexible. But that's kind of the more structured portion, I would say, of our homeschool, where it's like, this is what we're doing now. That's Monday to Thursday, okay? So Monday to Thursday, that is our homeschool time. After that, we have lunch. And then in the afternoons, it's either like we're going to go grocery shopping. And I'm trying to incorporate everything that we're learning in these other activities that we do. So we go somewhere, we go grocery shopping, or we go out for lunch, or we do anything. I'm always trying to work in math or language or, something. But they don't really know that it's not like a structured kind of thing. It's more like I'm just trying to work it in and make sure that I'm constantly that's, I guess, the unschool portion of it, right? Because it's like kids don't really even realize they're learning, but they're learning. So the afternoons are much more relaxed. Some days they spend 2 hours just building Lego or playing outside, and it gives me a chance to work in my business. And then on Fridays, we have something called Forest School that we enrolled in that was in, for anybody who's homeschooling, I highly recommend searching out programs like this in your area, but a lot of places offer this kind of stuff where it is, they're outside all day long, and it's like a more of a science, nature, outdoorsy kind of a program. And so there's a few, every other Friday, sometimes it's a few Fridays a month, sometimes it's 2 Fridays a month, where they're there all day and they are partaking in nature, science, learning, and that takes care of a lot of the educational part too for them, and the socialization part gives me some time to myself. And on the Fridays when they're not there, we have like quite a relaxed, chill day. We'll play board games. I also bought the Waldorfish art program. So I'll open up the our Waldorfish account, where it kind of tells you what's the art project for today, and they'll do art that day, but it's usually Fridays are a more chill day if they're not at Forest School. And that's it. That's what our homeschool looks like. A lot of you have asked me, what curriculum are you using, or what are you doing? That's what I've done. So to recap, I do have a little bit more structure to my mornings. The most, I guess, hands-on actual learning in a book or on a tablet that we would do would be between that 10 to 11 block, where they're either on their tablet or they're working in a workbook. But then the 9 to 10 is more just like kind of like that meditation, quiet time, writing time. And then the 11 to 12 is more of that like exploring and learning the things that they're interested in and just finding different resources to help them with that. And then everything else is just life school. So I have found that it's a really good balance for us. It's working for us. They're learning. They're doing great, I think. There are definitely days where I feel sometimes I lose my patience a little bit. Sometimes I'm tired. Sometimes I get exhausted. And, I don't get a break. I don't get time to myself like I'm used to getting. Like I used to go to yoga every day, you guys, right? Like I had such a schedule when my kids were in school. I got up every morning, I dropped them off at school, I would go to yoga for an hour, I would come home, I would shower, I would work in my business, I would have lunch, and just, I had so much time to myself. So it's definitely been a lot to give that up to now being in a place where I'm literally with them 24/7. But it's worth it. It's worth it because everybody's thriving. And yes, mommy's a little bit tired, but I also happen to have a very supportive partner who, you know, like today, he took him out of the house for a couple hours so I could just have time to myself. So it's a balance, it's a juggling act, but it's been the best decision for us. And it came from me following my gut, which I hope everybody is doing, especially now. Things are just going to get crazier, friends. Okay? I don't know what you guys think. You can chime in here. You've been pretty quiet tonight, but like if anybody has any thoughts on what's coming up, I do think it's going to get crazier. Okay? This is going to be a crazy time. And I know there are people who chose to send their kids to school previously who are now thinking again and thinking they might want to pull their kids out. And that's okay. You're allowed to change your mind too, right? Like, we're allowed to change our minds. I could have, at this point, been feeling like, oh my God, I made a mistake. What did I do? I think I'm going to put them in school. And that would have been okay too. We all have to give ourselves grace. You're allowed to change your mind. You're allowed to think differently. You're allowed to feel that something works for you now and then later on decide that it doesn't. But always do what feels best for you and your family. Don't succumb to this pressure of other people telling you what's the best for you, right? We are living in a culture right now where we keep being told what to do, right? Anybody else notice that? It's like all these gurus and these influencers and celebrities, they're telling us what to do, who to be, how to think, what to believe, shaming us for not wearing a mask or not voting for a certain person. I mean, it's crazy. It's so crazy how much we're being told how to think. And let me tell you something. This is just a little tip. This is what I did. I have unfollowed a lot of thought leaders and spiritual teachers the second I felt like they were telling me what to think. You guys, if somebody that you admire, and I'm not going to name names, but everybody knows who these people are. I have followed these people. I have spent thousands of dollars to take programs from these people. I've admired them. I've read all their books. And suddenly I see there is this political undertone. Not that they're expressing themselves, because that's totally okay. I'm okay with hearing what somebody themselves has to say. I do that too, right? I share my thoughts on my political thoughts. But it's when somebody is telling me what to do, telling me how to behave, telling me who to vote for or not vote for, or what to do, that rubs me the wrong way. Anybody who is wanting to truly empower you should not be telling you what to do. They can share what they do and what works for themselves and what they think, and encourage you to come to your own decisions that are best for you, right? Like I would never tell anybody, don't send your kids to school. That's a bad idea, right? I would just say, here's the reasons why I chose not to. And it turned out to be the right thing for us. So moving forward, it just feels like things are going to amp up even more. There's so much confusion out there. There's so much division. Do what feels best to you. Okay? Don't ever succumb to this pressure of other people. I don't care who it is. Do you guys know how many messages? This is just the last thing I'm going to say before I go. I've gotten easily in the last 2 days 15 to 20 messages in my DMs from women saying, we never get the flu shot, but my family, my friends, my in-laws, my parents this year, they're really pressuring us. They're telling us that this year of all years, we should get the flu shot. And my answer to that is, I'm not going to tell you what to do. So if you just haven't been getting a flu shot just because, go into the research about why you should or shouldn't get the flu shot, because it's out there, okay? I wouldn't touch the flu shot with a 10-foot pole, especially not this year, especially not after some of the preliminary data that we're seeing now that is looking at some of the reasons people might be more susceptible to COVID or other respiratory illnesses. This can be increased in people who've actually had the flu shot. So I wouldn't go near it myself, but don't believe me, go do your own research. So that's one thing. I always find people, if you've made a decision just based on what somebody else told you, but you haven't really done your own research, like if you haven't taken the flu shot all these years, good on you. But if you haven't taken it just because you just didn't want to, versus if you actually did some research and really made a conscious decision not to take it, right? That's two different things. So when you feel confident about your choices because you've really done the research and you've really done the homework and you know exactly why you're not going to get the flu shot or whatever, fill in the blank, then you can confidently turn to your family and say, no, I've done my homework and I'm not going to do that. And I don't think you should either. And here's the research why, and you can go do it yourself, right? So that's my first piece of advice to people is first just get really confident and comfortable with why you're doing that so that you can say that to your family. But then number two, don't ever let anybody tell you to make medical decisions that have potential risk of harm. Don't ever let anybody ever pressure you into doing something you're uncomfortable with just because you're afraid they might get mad at you, they might not want you around. Like, don't ever succumb to that, okay? Go talk to a mother who has lost a child to a vaccine or a medication or who has experienced a severe side effect or a disability or an injury of some type and ask her, okay? I say this with passion because I know many who would give anything to take that back. I worked in the pharmaceutical industry for 10 years, you guys. Every single drug, vaccine, biologic, fertility medication, I took those. Every single one on this planet has potential side effects. It's up to us to weigh the costs versus the benefit and make that decision for ourselves. Don't ever let somebody peer pressure you or push you into making a decision for you or your family that you're uncomfortable with. Okay, so I get so many people in my DMs saying that, and it's like, no, don't ever let anybody pressure you or tell you what to do. You need to be empowered right now. Okay, or I'll have people say to me, oh, well, I talked to my so-and-so friend and she's a doctor and she says to go ahead and get it, that it's safe. Again, I'm sorry, your doctor friend probably is not going to do as much research into something that you're going to do when it's directly affecting you deeply. Talk to anybody who's gone through any health issues in their life. Okay, I had a dad die of brain cancer. I can pretty much guarantee you that 99% of the medical professionals I dealt with don't know as much about that brain cancer as I ended up learning, because it was everything to me. I needed to learn it. I needed to dive in. I was trying to save my dad. I was desperate, right? And the medical professionals, yes, of course, they're intelligent. They go to school for years to learn this stuff, but they're not as invested as you are. Okay, so it's really important right now that you take charge of your own health, your own knowledge, your own empowerment. Do not leave that up to anybody else. I'm very honored when people say, oh, when you say this, I believe you and I trust you because I know that you do your research. No, don't just believe me though. Don't just do something because I said it. Go do your homework. Go do your own research so that you really feel good. And you don't have to say, oh, well, I heard this girl on the internet say it. Okay. All right, you guys. I had somebody say, I'm a teacher and I'm doing 100% virtual. So glad for that. I would not want to go back to work. Still thinking about, I know, I'm trying not to think about next school year. I think about it too, like, oh my God, what is going to happen by this time next year? I'm hoping and begging and praying that there will be change, but I'm not counting on it. Okay. I've pretty much said goodbye to a lot of things right now, even travel. Like, I don't even know if at this time next year we'll be able to travel. I mean, I know people are traveling, but that's not how I want to travel. Like, I refuse to wear a mask. I'm not going to wear a mask unless I was in an emergency situation, had to get somewhere. I'm not going to be traveling like that. I'm not going to be doing that, putting my kids in a mask. I'm not going to be going on a family vacation like that anytime soon. So I hope and pray for change. All we can do, guys, is just imagine the world that we want to be living in the next 6, 12, 18 months, and just hold on to that. And in the meantime, do everything you can to stay healthy, happy, whole, and empowered. All right, you guys, that's it for tonight. I'm going to sign off. Thank you so much for joining me live. If you didn't catch the whole thing, the IGTV episode will be loaded up pretty soon here, so you can start from the beginning. And we'll see you next week, next Sunday, Sunday school. All right, bye.